you tell us your name? Lynn, are you still with us?
Yes.
All right. What about you?
Well, the Ernie Hudson's character is more me. I just go along for the ride. I don't, I
Well, I mean,
don't have an opinion. Well, I do, but my opinions are more along. How can I say this? My opinions are in a different area. Do I believe that there's anything out there? Yes, I do. Do I think they're necessarily ghosts? Not necessarily. But I do think, even the Bible says that the dead in Christ will arise first. Well, if they're going to arise first, that means they're still here. So there is
yeah.
a little bit that, I do think that there's something more here that I can't see and that I don't know. But it's not really anything that I spent a whole lot of time as a kid worrying about or thinking about. In fact, I didn't even think about it until I started dating you. So, so you took a total unbelieving all the way everywhere and you talked me into going on a ghost hunt. So see?
Hey, the power of persuasion.
You've been a bad influence.
He's been a bad influence in a lot of ways.
Well, it may not be that bad.
Yeah, but you still love him.
Yeah, well.
She puts up with me.
Heck.
I thank God she does. Yeah. Well, Tommy, where do you see yourself falling in line? Skeptic, believer, open-minded skeptic, open-minded believer, non-believer?
Say open-minded believers.
Okay.
Of course, my outlook at things and everything in life right now, whether it's spiritualism, ghost hunting, religion, or what, you got to be open-minded about.
Yep. Yeah.
I can't sit here and get locked in completely. If me and you are sitting in one place and we see something that happens and each of us has a different perspective of it, we can't really lock ourselves in and just what one person's saying is actually what it is.
Right.
So you get like that, you're getting closed-minded and you're not solving no issue, not solving nothing, not really getting the understanding of what's going on.
True.
But to get a full understanding of something, you've got to have an open mind about it, be able to discuss things and not let yourself get locked in on what one person says.
Exactly. And I come at it from, and I've said this for years, and I thought I had coined the phrase, but then I heard it later that it's been around for years. But I've always called myself an open-minded skeptic. And that's kind of where all this started from, because this is the way I've seen myself, is that I don't, for every little creak, especially if I'm on an investigation, every little creak, every little noise, I'm not jumping and saying, ooh, we got something. I think there's a rational explanation for most things. But then, I'm open-minded enough to say, okay, there was no explanation for this or that or the other. Kent, where do you feel like you fall in line? Skeptic, believer, open-minded skeptic, open-minded believer, or non-believer?
I'm an open-minded skeptic. I have done a lot of research into the paranormal. Like I said, I'm the behind-the-scenes guy. I would rather research and relay information to people than be out there doing it. I have been on several investigations where they're there, you feel them, they're talking to you, you see them, all that, and you can pull up to the creepiest serial killer house and not get anything. So, I mean, unfortunately, ghosts don't work on command. So there's that. But I'm just I'm an open-minded skeptic. I have to look at it from all angles. And when I analyze like what we got evidence-wise, I'm literally like, if I catch a voice, I'm putting it on a loop for 30 to 40 seconds just to try to piece together what they're saying. I don't, yep, there's one. Okay, move on.
Exactly. Well, let me ask y'all, after we've talked about motivations and perspectives and how we approach ghost hunting, paranormal investigation. We've mentioned some of these TV shows, and one thing that's always bothered me, and Kent, I really want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, is you're sitting there and you get something to manifest. And I think Kent mentioned this earlier, but I've been where you investigate one location time after time after time and nothing happens. And then you come back and the next night is just like boom, 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 one thing after another, manifestations of whatever. And you just have an active night. But then the people that go, especially on these TV shows, they scream and run out of the room. To me, that has, it's like, what's the point? Why are you there? Fear and anxiety and trepidation in an investigation, can that hurt or harm?
It could definitely hurt. I mean, think about it in this sense. Let's go not necessarily on the topic of the show, but let's go with the fight or flight method medically. Fight or flight method that your body through, it's a shot of adrenaline. If you're not prepared for it, you could throw yourself into a heart attack.
True.
You have to, and with the TV shows, they instill by showing that experienced investigator running out. It's instilling fear in the viewer. That's what it's doing. It's fear mongering is all it's doing. But it draws the viewer in more. So that's just that's how TV works, and unfortunately, that's what they do.
Yeah. Well, they're after ratings. They have to please their advertisers so they can all make money. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the point behind it. Now, there is one here locally, and I believe your show, Kent, Abnormality, would fall in this category. that they're just doing it to get the message out. They're not looking for advertisers. This group, I hope to be able to get them on the show sometime, but they do their investigating shows and they're fully produced, but they're not, that slick, polished Hollywood thing. They're just putting it out there and not to make money. They're not trying to appease an advertiser, and they're just putting it out there for what they find. Another one that come up, and this is, I've seen it on so many ghost shows, which honestly, just between you and me, folks, I don't even watch them anymore. I begin to see some things that just really dishearten me for the industry, and I'll go on a local investigation. It's been a while since we've been on one, but local groups have invited Lynn and I, and we'll go with the local guys. But as far as sitting down and grabbing my popcorn or whatever and watching these guys, I just can't do it anymore. But that's me. But one thing that that kind of pissed me off, that kind of turned me off for some of these shows, is when they start antagonizing and they start screaming. Me personally, I can't handle. I just don't deal with that, because I think there needs to be some respect. But we'll talk about that in a second. Kent, what have you seen when folks do that?
It's very irritating. I come from a belief system that you respected them when you respected them when they were alive. Respect them when they're dead.
Exactly.
Respect for the dead is a key point for me. And I like what Lynn put in our little thing here, but it's true. If you keep poking and poking and poking, like I said earlier to the people out there, they operate on a different level, plane, whatever you want to call it. They don't have to listen to you. They're not afraid of you. So keep that in mind. Anybody on this, they don't care what you say to them.
No. No.
But it does boil down to, like Tom said, it's respect them, please. Don't.
Well, that's the whole bottom line, is respect. When we used to do our tours, that was one thing we talked about in the beginning before we ever started walking, was we respect the properties, respect whatever entity you might come in contact with, because we don't know what we're dealing with. Thankfully, on our tours in the several years that we did it, we never came across anything of evil intent. Lynn and I have talked about this, where it was just, thankfully we had such a family-oriented tour. We'd have 8 and 9-year-old kids and younger out there with the dowsing rods enjoying our tours, and we never came across anything negative or evil. But that's the main thing that we want to impress here, is the respect. And especially, we'll talk about this in a minute too, on the locations. Whoops, we lost Christine. Yeah, I'm sure she'll be back on.
She's rebooting.
Rebooting.
Oh, okay.
I'll wait for her to come back on to say what I wanted to say.
Okay, but yeah, we'll go into this in a little bit. But respect for, but whoever we're dealing with, Kent, do you want to say something?
Well, there's, like I said, I'll wait for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll wait for Christine to come back on and really touch on it. But just kind of go back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, is if you respect. So the problem with the paranormal investigation world, if you will, is there are several people out there very good at what they do, like myself and my team and you guys, and everybody out there is really professional. But it takes one person to mess that up.
Yeah.
One person respecting property, and they will rip it away so fast you can't blink.
Exactly. Yeah, that was, when we would be in a location, we'd be careful. Those of us that smoked, we wouldn't smoke in the building or on the property. We'd take it away from there or whatever. Actually, we wouldn't do it during an investigation to begin with. But, if you had a drink or whatever, you made sure it was locked up and wouldn't spill, just little things like that. And it's common sense. Oh, we lost Lynn too. So what's going on here? But anyway, well, go ahead. Okay, Lynn's back. I don't know what's going on with Christine. I think she was sending me a message somewhere else. Okay, nope, she hadn't popped back up yet. Well, go ahead and share that because I don't know what's going on with Christine, and we can go on to talk about locations.
All right, so I want to kind of touch on, like I said, I've done a ton of research on the one thing that you did is during your tours and investigations, you haven't necessarily come across anything with evil intent or an evil spirit or whatever.
Right.
The one thing to remember, and I want to get this out to the people, is an evil spirit's mentality. They're not going to come at you when you're in that group. They want to get you one-on-one because they know that there's power in numbers. So just kind of look at that side of the coin that, if you're in that massive group, they're going to be kind of hidden back and watching. It's that one-on-one interaction that they're going to try to get at you.
That's good.
Another thing, really, before I let you continue, before you continue on, is when you're doing and you're getting ready to leave that investigation, do everything in your power to make sure that they don't follow. That's all I'm going to say on that. If you want me to touch more on that later, I will.
No,
But
that's actually
they can follow. So
yes. Well, that's good. You bring that point up because you are correct. Things can follow you home. That was one thing that we always did in the groups that I investigated with. I mean, we didn't, get a group together, at the end of it and, hold hands and sing Kumbaya or say the Lord's Prayer or anything. But we each knew the responsibility of to borrow a word from the Catholic Church, to shrive ourselves, where, basically saying nothing here is coming home. But each individual had to take care of that themselves, where we would say nothing is coming. It's like that. We've mentioned this before, but the old adage that the vampire can only come in if he's invited. And, on the investigations we were on, each investigator understood the importance of making sure anything stayed on site and didn't follow them home. Now, the reason we didn't do it as a group is because you got different belief systems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to handle it a different way. But it was something we did talk about and made a stress, emphasize this. Before you leave this investigation, deal with it. Don't take it home. That was good, Kent. I appreciate you bringing that up.
I don't know if you guys can see this very neck. I wear, what is this one? Oh, this is my St. Christopher.
I was going to say, that looks like a St. Christopher.
From the moment I put it on, I have never taken it off since I shower with it, swim with it, whatever. I never take it off. And I've never had any issues. Another thing that we like to do, like you said, with the different beliefs, is in a very respectful manner. You just tell them out loud, you are not to follow anyone home. You are to stay here. Do
Right.
not follow anyone home. And we have yet to have anybody get followed home since doing that.
Good. All right. Well, I'm glad we covered that. That's some important thing. That's something that has to be done every investigation to deal with. All right. With location, Kent, what do you look for in a location? That is it just somebody? Well, let me just back up. Just in a general sense,
Well,
if you choose, what do you look for?
so if I'm choosing the location, I'm looking for a very, very, very historic one that has lots of history, not necessarily like your funeral home from the 1920s. I'm looking for that turn of the century building that maybe doesn't have confirmed, but it could. That's what I'm looking for. I'm out trying to find the investigation.
Right.
So I'm looking for the older style buildings. And that's what I'm personally looking for.
And one thing you have to consider when doing that, has there been a request to investigate that building? But you know, like I just backed up and said, okay, if you're just looking for something. But one thing we have to remember, if we've been requested to investigate, or if it's something that we're choosing our own, do we have permission?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you, to me, if you go in breaking the law right off the bat when you step on the property, then you're going to have issues. It's called karma, I think. So make sure you've either been requested or have permission. Because usually if somebody's asking you to come investigate, then you have permission. But if you're just picking something, drive by and say, hey, I want to go investigate, go get permission first. Because I personally believe that negative karma will affect you. Yeah. I mean,
karma is not a joke.
There you go. What goes around comes around. Now, I personally, before my tour came along, Lynn could tell you I had been batting around the idea of a new team. I've already been with a couple, and I was wanting to get a small team, no more than 4 or 5 people, and I wanted to go find locations that had no history of manifestations. In other words, people want to do what's the big asylum, the Waverly, because of all the evidence that's been. I don't want to do a Waverly. If I go into a site, first off, I don't want to know what's been going on there. That's just me personally. And the reason, see what you think about this, Kent. The reason being is if I capture any evidence, I want to be able to compare it to what's been previously going on. And if I know in my head what's been going on, then my own personal confirmation bias can usually steer the investigation in that direction. So I would rather not know the history in one sense. The natural history, yes, but the supernatural history I don't want to know, so that my own personal bias doesn't skew the investigation. Does that make sense?
I think you find
It does,
what you go in
because whether or not
expecting to
your
find.
mind is a very, very if you already know that you're walking into Waverly, for instance, and there's over 100 spirits in there, your mind being so powerful is going to draw you to only focus on those 100 spirits, or whatever. It's going to change your outline. Well, this is I don't need to be here. Why am I here? I'm bored.
Right.
Versus finding that place, like you said, that has no history reported, because now you're looking at every nook and cranny. You're on every floor. You're in a corner trying to get an answer.
Right.
Where at Waverly, for instance, you're going to stand in the center of the big open room and know that they're going to talk to you.
Right. And what was it you said, Lynn?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Waverly is my.
I said you go in and you generally find what you expect to find.
Yep.
If you expect to find all of this, that's what you get. And if you're
Right.
told this is what's there, that's what you expect, and you're not really going to find anything indifferent.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I don't want to know. I mean, I've had people get upset with me on a investigation. I remember one in particular, the group's researcher says, "Okay, let me tell you the history." So she told us the history, which was great. And then she said, "And they've had this manifestation," and I stopped him. I was like, "Whoa, stop. I don't want to know." And she got upset because she couldn't share her information, I guess. So, but some things to remember before we.
Well, there's a reason why. There's earlier with the psychics and mediums. There's a reason why when they're doing a reading on a place, they don't want to know anything. It skews their ability.
Right.
They're going to be able to, like, if you tell them, "Hey, many spirit," they're automatically going to go in queuing in their head with their skills. There's X amount of spirits that I can reach out to.
Right. Right.
If that makes any sense to anybody.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, let's kind of close out the location section real quick. We want to one thing you want to know, is it physically safe? The Kennedy House downtown, we investigated, and there were certain sections of the building that we could not go into. It wasn't that we were forbidden, but you could walk in there and fall through the floor down 2 stories. So
that would hurt.
Yeah, so we had to make sure we.
That house there.
Yeah, but they have fully restored it now. Find out if there's any local.
They were talking
laws.
about tearing it down, and I wanted to cry.
Yeah, but they fully restored it now. But find out if there's any local laws or ordinances that had to be respected, because there could be some reason you can't be there. So make sure you got that. And we've already. Also, is it occupied?
I remember that.
What's okay? You remember? Christine just chimed in. All right.
Sorry, Lynn was saying that she about cried, and I was just saying, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, beautiful house, building. They've fully restored it. But you also want to know if it's occupied. In other words, it could be a family living there. And if a family is still currently living there, you got to make sure you respect their private space and only go into areas that they want you to be in. But also, if you're going into an abandoned building, it's always
and one other thing, Tom.
Go ahead.
One other thing to mention about the whole family home thing, and then I'll let this continue on. As it being a family home, keep in mind, if you are investigating, you get to leave. So you don't bring something there by antagonizing and all that, because then it's going to torture them.
Right.
And that's just not right to do, especially if they have little kids or whatever. So that's where the respect, antagonizing, just, it's one big giant bubble.
Yeah,
play with it gently.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up. And these are things to remember. Those of you that are watching, these are just tips and pointers to remember if you've never hunted ghosts before, or if you're looking at getting into it. And there's nothing wrong with more people out there investigating. I don't have a problem with that. Just be smart about it. Hang on, who are we missing here? Oh, no, we're not missing anybody. And the different types, of course, homes. Kent mentioned, historic buildings, modern homes, office buildings, asylums, graveyards, cemetery. How many is investigated cemeteries? Those are kind of freaky. uh, yeah, we were investigating a big, huge cemetery in Mobile, and somebody had on a spirit
I love.
box. And right in the middle of the spirit box session, we hear it, the frequency stop, and then you hear this voice say, "Tom did it." And everybody's looking at me, and they were like, "What?" I don't know, but I probably did. Battlegrounds. I've never had the opportunity to investigate a battleground, but has anybody? If you're viewing, let us know if you investigated some of these places. Tell us about it. A lighthouse. There's several lighthouses in the area here that have reputations, put it that way. What are some other places you think, location-wise? Anybody?
Honestly, I would say, and just to pipe in real quick, would be your public forests. A lot of homesteads that were back in the back, way back when, from the pioneers.
That's a good one.
Be able to go out there and get some. I mean, and most of them, as long as they're public and whatever, you go walking out there, and
true.
All you need is a voice recorder. You don't need all the fancy stuff you see on TV.
Right.
Voice recorder and a digital camera, and you'd be amazed at what you can catch.
Yeah.
What about churches or cathedrals or theaters? Any old building.
Well, the thing with churches, you just have to respect, where they're coming from. Because some of them just won't allow it because it goes against their belief systems, and but some are open to it. I was listening to a podcast today of a Catholic, or not today, yesterday. They were interviewing a Catholic priest, and he's open to all this, So you never know. But that reminded me what Kent said. When we restructured our tours, we started. We needed to find a place to investigate, so we picked a little plaza downtown. And I'd never heard anything about this plaza being haunted or having any kind of manifestation, anything. And so the first night we get there, we're like, okay, let's just see what happens. We didn't know if we would get anything. And we were sitting there, and we had a flashlight set up on the back of this bench, and we had one of the apps going. And I just said the, patent phrase, "Is there anybody here with us that wants to communicate?" And the light came on, and the app spoke up the name Wilson. I mean, just as soon as that video is actually on our Facebook page where that happened. And like I said, never heard of anything. And in research, I've never found anything about a Wilson being from that area, died in that area, lived in that area, or anything. So yeah, plazas, parks, public forests, like he said. All right, we're going to move into some tools as we close out today. Some different ghost hunting tools that we recommend, but we're going to go into one of our sponsors, Christine Rogers. All right, check her out on Facebook at author Christine Rogers and go buy her books. Okay? All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
I divided the tools section into basically two sections, inexpensive and the more advanced. And Kent's already mentioned that, with the camera and a recorder, you'd be amazed of what you can find and what kind of evidence you can garner that way. But it's always good to have a flashlight. And this is something I learned. I picked up from another group that just kind of shocked me because I had my little headlight and I had a handheld flashlight. And of course we do the flashlight experiment. And, but I went in on an investigation one time with this other group and they had red lensed flashlights. And the red lens, you can see everything you need to see, but it's not throwing a glare. Because you know how it is with the headlights, especially when I'd use them, and you'd go to look at somebody and you're shining the light right in their eyes, And I noticed that as they would shine their red lens flashlights, you could see everything, but it's not blinding anybody. And so it's just a good idea. And one thing we started doing several years ago, I found some of these yellow safety glasses. And wearing the yellow safety glasses over my glasses, it makes things a little easier to see at night. Has anybody ever tried those, used those before? Anybody watching? Well, it was just amazing, to walk in, you see all this red light flashing, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And you walk in a room and they're shining a red flashlight. And I'm like, wow, that I just like, why didn't I think of that kind of thing? All right. Dowsing rods, pendulums. These are just inexpensive things you can do. I actually got turned on to the dowsing rods with the tour company that we were involved with and learned how to make them. And we saw great success. Tim Shepard still uses them with Raven Wind Tours. And have you ever used them?
They're a pain to make, 2 dozen.
Yeah. I remember sitting there for hours cutting the wire and bending but they really were. And one thing we did, I kind of took and built off of that. Since we were outside, I took a length of heavy copper wire. Dense, heavy copper wire. And then I took a copper pipe and got some caps and put on the ends and then drilled a hole through one side of the copper pipe. The copper pipe was maybe 18 inches. And then I would take the length of wire, the heavy wire, and I would stick it in the ground. And of course, when I drilled the hole in the middle of the pipe, it was a pain to find the actual middle where it would balance. And I would stick the pipe down onto the wire that was stuck in the ground so it would spin freely. And, same premise as the dowsing rods. And I'm sure if you wanted to use it indoors, you could do something with making a stand out of it. But these are just simple little things. Ouija boards, again, it's controversial. Just use extreme caution. Trigger options, toys, pictures. We've got little balls, jingle balls and bells and little cars, like little Hot Wheel cars, things that they can push around. And you know what? I've even got we talked about a recorder a minute ago. We have the little digital recorder. Nice thing about this one, it's got the, where'd it go? Oh, yeah. It's got the USB port that slides out one end so you can go upload straight to a computer. I'm losing it here. A little attachment on it so you can plug it right in. Lynn found these great little external microphones that makes the sensitivity even better. was just a cheap little, inexpensive. It was not cheap. They're RCA, pretty good little things. And the apps. Okay, I know a lot of folks complain about the apps, but who's had good experiences with the apps? Anybody?
I have.
Well, one I like to share is I'm sitting there telling a story on tour one night, and somebody had an app running, and I was into the story, and it involved a love triangle, and I started talking about the woman involved, and I said her name, and I said her name wrong. Excuse me. And the app spoke up the correct name.
Yeah, I think I was there for that one.
Oh yeah.
You were too.
Yeah. And I mean, it was wild. So you can have good. I mean, sometimes you get the weird stuff like fluffy pineapple mango or so, but anyway, you can have some good stuff with those. Just knowing that they're apps, folks. They're not professional. And then if you want to get into the more advanced, you can get into your spirit boxes, your laser thermometers. I think I got one. I mean, we've used these before, but one thing you got to remember with the lasers, folks, it's only good like 8 to 12 inches. You can't shoot something 15 feet away and get an accurate temperature reading. It tells you that. Laser grids, EMF detectors, EM pumps, full spectrum cameras, REM pods, you name it, it can go on and on. You can find these at our strangejourneys.live site. We've got all kind of stuff there. All right.
Now
As we go to close the show down, any final thoughts on anything, Kent, as we close it out today? Whoa. Somebody's okay. All right. Kent, final words.
Like Tom, been doing this for a very long time. A bit of information I've given you guys will never. It won't start you off wrong at all.
Right.
Just the biggest thing when it comes to ghost hunting, paranormal investigating, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. Be respectful, get permission, and leave it better than you found it. I go to a lot of places now, and it disgusts me to see how dirty these historic buildings and cemeteries and areas are because people just trash them.
Yeah.
And that's how we're losing landmarks to ghost hunts because like I said earlier, it's one bad experience for that owner, and they will shut it down to everybody.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. Just be respectful. Use common sense.
Yes, and thank you. What he said. All right, Tommy, any final thoughts?
I think Ken pretty much said it for everybody else. But that's pretty much what I was thinking. Be respectful. Try to leave things in better what it was. Don't leave a mess. And again, like you said, ask for permission. And don't get mad if somebody tells you can't.
Right.
Exactly. Christine?
Yeah, they've already covered everything.
What he said.
What he said. The only thing that I guess I could add.
There's also one other key piece of information.
Oh.
Go ahead, Kent.
So I forgot to put it in there, and it's my little spiel to everybody. But when you do an investigation, do not put the evidence online for other people to view or to hear without the owner's consent.
Good.
Because now they're going to have every ghost hunter out there knocking at their door.
Yep, that makes sense. Good one. Christine?
The only other thing that I could think to say would be go with a buddy. Go with somebody that you trust.
There you go.
Don't do this alone because you just never know.
Yep. Exactly. Lynn?
I just say leave your sticks at home. You poke a stick at a snake, he's gonna snap at you, and you're liable to bleed.
Yep.
There you go.
Go with an open mind. And remember this as we close out today. The only true and irrefutable evidence of the paranormal or supernatural is personal experience. You know what you saw, you witnessed, you experienced, and no one can refute or debunk that. And while we're never going to have a complete and full understanding of the other side, we'll continue to investigate, to hunt, to research on many more of these strange journeys. So thank you guys for joining us today on this expedition into the strange, and please join us on our next trip. Thank you guys for being with us. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Kent. Hey, next time.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
We're so glad you came today and was with us. And look forward to the next show because we're talking about something new, something stranger than we've ever talked about before. And that's the Stick Man, a two-dimensional shadow cryptid. Have you ever heard of him? Well, tune in 2 weeks and we'll talk about him. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.